There we go. Hey, yeah, I'm working on my little transition. I'll get it right one of these days. Yeah, and I just completely forgot that I got the overhead light on too. I don't care. Look, I this has been a crazy Friday, and I'm really glad that you all have hung out with me for the rest of this Friday. Welcome to the dark room. It's supposed. Wait a minute. This light is about. Hold on. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Oh, I'm glad I put my pants on. Welcome to the dark room, the after party of Darker Than Blue, if you will, here in Luqman Nation. Welcome everybody here on Black Liberation Media. Ooh, Kamathi says hi. He's making an unusual appearance. We're trying to get him to play with toys. I got a bark box for him, and they send you like 4 or 5 little different toys, and he's he doesn't pay any attention to them unless I put a treat in the toy somehow. And he gets the treat, and then he doesn't give a shit about the toys. So this is probably going to be the last bark box that I spend $25 on trying to get this dog to play with some damn toys, and he just won't do it. But so yeah, the timing is always weird, especially during pledge drive. It's always hard to get all of that stuff into that hour to do a pitch, to do the promos, all that kind of stuff. And I almost got to the perfect transition, but I just want to say. I'm looking. I finally really did get a chance to look at the donations, and thank you for those of you. I know a couple of you did donate who watch. Thank you very much. I appreciate you so much. So let me get into the rest of this thing, because um like I said, people don't know what words mean anymore. So they keep using words, and they keep saying things, and they don't realize that, okay, you're using that word wrong, or you don't realize that what you're saying is actually not true because you don't understand what that word means. So I figure, all right, let's talk about why um the word unprecedented, when we're talking about Trump's behavior, particularly in the case of the buyouts for the federal employees, why that is actually not unprecedented. Okay. But first, before we get into that, let me do this, because I hate when I forget that I do a whole show for an hour, and you all are in here and you're making comments and your chat, and I don't get to look at those comments while I'm doing Darker Than Blue, because I have to pay attention to the engineer in the studio, so I can't pay attention to the chat. So I want to make sure I get over here in this chat and I say hello to y'all. And I didn't get a chance to do my tablet where I have my teleprompter set up so I can be looking at you while I'm talking and reading from the thing. I like that a lot better than looking up, but I just didn't have time to. I told you today was just weird on the time. So hey, Rouse Pasta Sauce, what up? Eric, Berkeley, James, Leah, Phil, Terry, McClubbin, Red Sea, uh, C. Nicole, let's see, David Silberg, Monty Nile, Joshua Ingram, Chichimacha, Door of L, Warren Register. Where we going? It start with words. Let's go. Let me make sure I have everybody. Winimo Paweja. Forgive me if I mispronounce that. Uh, who else? Who else? Who else is in here? Who else do we have? Nene. What's going on? See you. See you. What's going? What got Red Sea? I got you. Brianna Arabia. Sugar Sham. Alex. DeHuma Boutique, I think that's DeHuma. If it's not, please forgive me. Or maybe it's DeJuma. Maybe I just pronounce it exactly the way it's spelled for once. I don't know. Forgive me if I mispronounced it. CBC voter, what's going on? Christy Z, good to see you. BL, hey. Let's see. Let me go down. Let me 40 J Blaze, MJB set 93, Yipper 99, Brittany Bowman, Dre without. No, I'm sorry, Dre without. That's the make sure I get that right. Two F's. I think that's no, it's not. AZ. Oh, this is so exciting. This is a very nice roster. I like this roster very much. Pamela Jones, Swery, Ferry. What's going on? Thank you all so much for joining me over here in the dark room. Oh, Afrogami, one last one. And wait a minute. Oforiwa. Thank you. Let me get that right. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Thank y'all so much. All right. Let's talk about Bill Clinton. So this is, I really feel like the lack of knowledge that I'm seeing of political reality extends to like ignorance of Democrat political history. I really do believe that's true. And this is why people don't know that Trump is copying a lot of things. I shouldn't say a lot because people get stuck on individual words. It's already happened in the chat. Already saw it. People get stuck, on so let me not say a lot because people are going to be, well, no, it wasn't a lot. It was just this certain number. Okay, all right. So it wasn't a lot. But Trump is copying some things that Democrats have done. That is just true. Let me close that. There we go. That is just true, regardless of whether things were done exactly the way they were done before. The fact that somebody did it before and he is just taking what was done before and like covering it in his own shit and throwing it up against the wall. He's really, it's not. So this is what I'm talking about. We talked about how the Clinton administration is responsible for the immigration legislation that Trump is using to carry out the ICE raids that have been done before, but not in such a, I guess, for a lot of people who really just were not paying attention politically to the 90s, or just weren't there, were not here then, and didn't know what Clinton did with that immigration policy and what Democrats and Republicans have done since then with that immigration policy. So even the U.S. media had to admit that Trump's announcement of a plan to ethnically cleanse the remaining Palestinians from Gaza and take it and hold it wasn't something that Trump thought up all on his own. The same plan, the exact same plan. So Trump was repeating something that Biden offered to the very same people in private months earlier. Somehow people didn't seem to care that Biden offered to ethnically cleanse Gaza for Israel as Kamala Harris was claiming that they were working tirelessly toward a ceasefire to get you to vote for her. We told you that was a lie, but folks didn't believe us until Reuters proved that we were right. But of course, that was only after Trump held the press conference to make the same ethnic cleansing offer publicly that Biden made privately, right? So, color me not surprised at all that there is yet another example of Trump doing something Democrats have done before that people don't want to know about. But of course, I'm going to tell you because I'm fucking petty. This time, the point is made not by me. I am not the one. Somebody brought this to me. And I'm so glad that they did. The point is being made here by Reason Magazine. Now, if you're not familiar with Reason, Reason is a magazine published by libertarians. So it is not something that I would normally be reading. But every once in a while, I do read Reason because every once in a while, the libertarians will tell the truth about something. And then their response is typical libertarian bullshit, right? But they did write this article. And I thought this was pretty funny because, the libertarians stay trolling. They do. They stay trolling the Democrats, not for good reasons, because the libertarians are right wing. Let's be clear. All right. They prioritize private property. Regardless of what else they say they are for capitalism and private property. So when you come across libertarianisms who are like, oh, we're opposed to this war, they are literally opposed to that particular war. They're not anti-war at all. They are certainly not anti-imperialist. All right. So be clear about who the libertarians are. They don't agree with you, even if they don't like the same war that you don't like. So Reason Magazine published this article, and the title of the article is, Will Elon Musk Cut as Much Government as Al Gore Did? I didn't make this up. I didn't do I'm going to prove it to you. Where is the article? What did I do with it? What did I do with it? Oh no. Shoot. I think I closed it. No, I didn't. I did not close it. I was about to say, I know I didn't do something that dumb. when I don't close articles when I know I'm doing a live. Here we go. There you go. Reason Magazine. This article was published just a few days ago on the 7th. Let me go over here and change there I am so you can see my amusement as we go through this article together. Okay, let me increase so you can read along. Yes, very big. Let us commence. After winning a return to the White House, President Donald Trump tapped Tesla CEO Elon Musk to head the Department of Government Efficiency, or the DOGE, a body tasked with making the government less costly and more efficient. It is an arduous and unenviable task. It is also not the first such endeavor. In the 1990s, then Vice President Al Gore undertook a similar effort. What can we learn from Gore's experience? Let me go over here to my notes to see. Okay, let's just make sure I didn't have another comment in there. Not yet. Okay. As president, Bill Clinton famously declared that, quote, the era of big government is over, end quote. Let's stop right there. Bill Clinton was president after Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan made a big deal about big government. I mean, that man talked about fucking big government as much as he talked about goddamn welfare queens. And that was made up too, the welfare queens. So you had, what was it, 8 years of Reagan going on and on about how government was too big. And this was just a conservative thing. Every time the conservatives got on television, they talked about three things during the Reagan years. They talked about they talked about crime or drugs. They talked about welfare, welfare cheats, welfare queens, welfare recipients needing to work, welfare recipients being lazy, welfare recipients buying steak with the food stamps. I don't give a damn. Get some steak. You better get a porterhouse. You deserve a porterhouse once a month on those food stamps. Yes, you do. And a lobster, if that's your thing. Or the best tofu you can. Yes, you do. You deserve those things, whether you are on assistance or whether you work. Everybody deserves things that they enjoy. Just because you are poor, it doesn't mean you should never get to enjoy something you like. That's just hate. That's all it is. But whenever the Republicans were on television during the Reagan years, it was all about crime or drugs, welfare costing us too much money because of the lazy welfare queens and the cheats and all of the women on welfare, all the black women on welfare having abortions. That and big government. That's all these people talked about. So then here comes Bill Clinton. After the years of Reagan throwing red meat to his base about all of the things that the Negroes were doing to make life difficult for you good whites. Because remember, Reagan is the guy who kicked his campaign off in Philadelphia, fucking Mississippi. Look it up. Look up why that matters. So here you have, and obviously, blatantly, everybody knew it was racist presidency of Ronald Reagan, and you got Bill Clinton coming after that, repeating the same shit Reagan said about the same people. And it is out of that restructuring of the Democratic Party that the Democratic leadership, what were they called? I keep forgetting what the hell Democratic Leadership Convention or Commission or cabal. That's a bunch of fucking crackers. That's what they did. They created a strategy to change their party's platform, to change the focus of the Democratic Party's platform from focusing on equality and justice for all people in this country, raising up the issues of civil rights, raising up the issue of women's rights, raising up the issues of inequality in every aspect of society, in equal access for the disabled, in rights for women, in rights for queer and trans. These were things that at one time the Democratic Party said they were committed to, and the policies of their platform would reflect these priorities. The Democratic Leadership Council said the Reagan presidency was a wake-up call. People were excited about that presidency. They didn't seem to differentiate between racist fucking white people who liked the racist shit that Ronald Reagan was saying and doing so that they could get rich, compared to everybody else who didn't get rich, who may not have been directly affected by Reagan's racist policies, but were certainly not like, yay, Reagan is our savior. They're like, those people are getting rich. The stockbrokers, the people who already have a lot of money are getting rich. We're not. And wait a minute, you're cutting food stamps? You're messing with immigration? You are not, you're busting unions? Wait, you're messing with us. So the Democratic Party understood this, but they did not want to do anything to appeal to the working class that was disenfranchised by Reagan. They wanted to appeal to the moderate Republicans to grow their party with. They intentionally, the Democratic Leadership Council made an intentional, strategic decision to ignore working class Americans. All of us, black, white, gay, straight, woman, women, men, able-bodied, they didn't care. They did not care. If you were poor, they didn't give a shit about you. That was literally their strategy. And if you wanted to be a part of the Democratic Party apparatus, the machine, then you had to agree to that, which meant that if you were a member of those marginalized groups, you had to turn your back on the most affected, marginalized people within your group, which is what happened, which is why the CBC went from an organization that was focused on demanding equality and justice in policy for Black folks to the cesspool of worthless neoliberal Negroes that it is today. Because they bought into the DLC strategy of appealing to the right in this country, not to make anything better. See, if they had decided we're going to appeal to the right to get some corporate money so we can push some more programs that will help more working class, but no, they didn't even, it wasn't even like a Trojan horse plan. It wasn't even like we're going to use them for our purposes. It wasn't anything like that. It was literally, we have to appeal to middle class, conservative leaning white voters in order for us to keep winning against the Republicans. That's literally what the DLC strategy was. So this third way strategy that they came up with, that's what they called it. Third way strategy that the DLC came up with for their party was what Bill Clinton ran on. So when Bill Clinton comes along, the DLC rolls out this strategy and says, this is what your platform will be. You will be tough on crime. You will be tough on welfare. You will be tough on immigration. And you will be tough on government spending, because these are the things that Republican voters are concerned about. So Bill Clinton, when he campaigns, he starts talking about these things. I'm going to be tough on crime. That's where the 94 crime bill came from. I'm going to be tough on immigration. That's where Ira, however you, Bill Clinton's immigration bill, that's where that came from. I'm going to be tough on welfare. That's where Bill Clinton came up with the welfare, what was it called? The Welfare Reform and Personal Responsibility Act. It had a Republican title because they were appealing to Republicans. That came from Bill Clinton. Him saying, I'm going to be tough on welfare, because the Democratic Party's strategy was fuck poor people. So when Bill Clinton says, I'm going to be tough on government spending, he is. He does create this program. He declared, like I said, the era of big government is over, just like Ronald Reagan was saying. Weeks into his term, Clinton had announced a national performance review. It's called an NPR, National Performance Review, to reinvent the government. He put Al Gore in charge of the project, which was later codified into law by the Government Performance and Results Act of 1993. We're going to talk about that point in a minute. We're going to talk about it. A dedicated website said the NPR initiative, later renamed the National Partnership for Reinventing Government, would make government, quote, work better, cost less, and get results Americans care about. Excuse me. The NPR issued its first report in September 1993, which was called From Red Tape to Results, Creating a Government That Works Better and Costs Less. It listed 1,200 recommendations across the entire government that, if implemented, it said could save $108 billion in 5 years, which would be $235 billion in 2024 dollars. Quote, if we follow these steps, we will move much closer to a government that costs less and works better for all of us, the report concluded. It will be leaner, more effective, fairer, and more up to date. It will be a government worth what we pay for it. And perhaps the federal debt, that $4 trillion albatross around the necks of our children and grandchildren, that's not what. Government debt doesn't work like my debt. It doesn't work like your debt. It's not the same as your budget. But that's another show for another day. The debt will slow its rampage. There's not a rampage. And then anyway, Elaine Camark, a senior fellow in governance studies at the Brookings Institution, who worked as an advisor to Gore at the time, touted the NPR's accomplishments in testimony before the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform in 2013. She said, quote, we reduced the federal workforce, look at that number, by 426,200 between January 1993 and September 2000. So 7 years. Took them 7 years to reduce the government workforce by almost 500,000 people, making the federal government in 2000 the smallest government since Dwight D. Eisenhower was president, while also yielding $136 billion in savings to the taxpayer, end quote. The government did cut its workforce during the Clinton years, with the overall number of federal employees falling from 3.9 million in January 1993 to 2.75 million in September 2000, suggesting that Camarac's cited cuts outpaced hiring. So the Clinton and Gore, even over a 7-year period, cut more positions than they hired back. So the point that somebody made in the chat yesterday morning, well, the difference is that these positions aren't going to be refilled. Well, those positions weren't filled either. So that, okay. Let's see, where am I going? Donald Kettle, a Brookings Institution scholar who studied the NPR at the time, told a Senate subcommittee in May 2000 that while some agencies shrank substantially during Clinton's tenure, quote, 3 cabinet departments have grown: Commerce, especially to manage the census; the State Department to cope with international to coup people, and Justice to oppress people. That was it, to oppress people. But they say to increase the number of guards at federal prisons, to oppress people. That's what. Those cuts also weren't across the board. Since 1993, the reduction in the executive branch workforce, not counting the U.S. Postal Service, because remember, we talked about why the Postal Service is usually not included in any kind of government rifts or whatever last week, amounts to approximately 400,000 jobs, Stephen Barr wrote in the Washington Post in October 2000. The downsizing was fueled by the post-Cold War base closings and budget cuts at the Defense Department, where about 70% of the civil service cuts took place. The 1999 Government Accountability Office report expressed skepticism about the claimed savings. They said that NPR claimed savings from agency-specific recommendations that could not be fully attributed to its efforts, the report found, as the Office of Management and Budget generally did not distinguish NPR's contributions from other initiatives or factors that influenced budget reductions at the agencies we reviewed. The GAO also identified 2 instances where OMB counted at least part of the estimated savings twice, including 2 recommendations that constituted potentially up to $1.4 billion in estimated savings on their own. So even under Clinton Gore, the so-called good guys, the so-called people that are better than the Republicans, they lie about their shit too. So that's what all that's like, yeah, they did cut this many positions from the government. They did cut this many, jobs from the workforce, but their claims about the amount of money they saved is a little dubious. Very dubious is what they were saying. But they did cut this 400,000 plus 426,000 jobs from the workforce. So this article says still there have certainly been more profligate presidencies during Clinton's tenure. The amount of federal debt held by the public barely budged, rising from $3.3 trillion to $3.4 trillion. The government even ran budget surpluses for several years, contributed hundreds of billions of dollars toward paying down the debt. Can Musk and Trump achieve that much? Reason magazine says it would be a hard lift for Trump to match what the Democrats did over 7 years. Asked before the 2024 election how much he thought he could cut from the federal budget, which currently tops 6.8 trillion, Musk, and I have to stop right there. I don't know why anybody was asking Elon Musk anything about what he was going to do before the election. Why are you talking to him? This is why we say the US media is trash. The US media, the US corporate media, the US established media, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Reuters, Associated Press, the LA Times, all of them, the Atlantic magazine, the Washington Post magazine, what's the other one? No, I think it's the Atlantic that I'm thinking about. All of them. All of them are scribes for the empire. So whatever they say, which is why I always tell you, you have to, yes, they're lying, but read the articles, read the entire article, because they always slide a kernel of truth in there right around the end. And unless you read the article, you will never realize that they know they're lying to you. They know. So I don't know why they're asking Elon Musk what he is going to do before the election even happens. So I don't know how anybody knew he would. He was a private citizen, wasn't an employee, wasn't a part of the campaign. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, but they asked him anyway. I think we could do at least 2 trillion is what he said. Such a cut would be difficult, but not impossible, said Reason magazine. The 2019 federal budget totaled 4.4 trillion, 5.4 trillion in 2024 dollars. Even adjusting for inflation, Congress could cut 2 trillion and spend only $700 billion less in constant dollars than it did before the COVID-19 pandemic. But Musk walked back his prediction after the election, admitting in January that it was just the best case outcome, and that I think if we try for 2 million, we've got a good shot at getting 1. In a post this week on X, the social media platform he owns, Musk said he was cautiously optimistic he would reach his goal of 4 billion per day in savings from the budget for fiscal year 2026, which would reduce the federal deficit from 2 trillion to 1 trillion. Okay, the GOP hasn't been much help, although entitlements are the biggest deficit drivers. I hate that fucking word. Entitlements is another one of those words that conservatives have used and have weaponized to make the thing they are talking about sound like it's something bad. I am absolutely entitled to my fucking Social Security that I have paid into since I have been working, which has been since I have been 16. So you want to call that an entitlement as if that's a bad thing all you want to. You're not going to make me ashamed of the fact that you owe me my money. Social Security is our money. It is the workers' money. So Yeah, I'm entitled to mine. Uh-huh. So these politicians who talk about welfare as an entitlement, yeah, I should not have to suffer homelessness if I cannot find a job in the richest country this planet has ever seen. I absolutely am entitled to a fucking roof over my head because I'm a human being, just like you. So yes, I am entitled to have an income, even if I cannot find a job because you won't provide a job. I am entitled to a way to put a roof over my head and food in my belly. Yes, I am. And you're not going to be make me ashamed of being entitled to being treated like a human being, to having my human rights met. You're not going to make me ashamed to say that I am entitled to have my human rights guaranteed because I'm a human being. Get out of here. We need to stop responding to these Republicans, to these conservatives, and even some of these so-called Democrats, these liberals who pile on, who join into this shaming of people using these words against us. We need to respond to them with less begging them not to be such dicks and just respond to them with facts and spite. Just spite. Just go right ahead and be as angry at these motherfuckers as they deserve to see us. All of this politeness, and they don't deserve any respect from us, these politicians. I don't care how long they've been doing the job. They need to get cussed out, just like y'all say some of the slick shit you say to me and Erica when you disagree with us on the radio. Say that shit to these politicians. Give them the same energy some of y'all give us leftists when you don't want to hear what we have to say. I want to see y'all have that much energy for those people who actually are harming you, who actually are making your life a living hell. Give them the same energy and the same negativity and the same nastiness that you give us when you don't want to hear what we have to say. Anyway, although entitlements are the biggest deficit drivers, the 2024 Republican platform pledged to fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. Now, I don't believe them for 1 second. I don't believe don't believe that. There is similarly no guarantee that Republicans can simply grow the economy enough to outweigh the deficit. Now, remember, this is Reason, a libertarian magazine, and they are framing the Republicans' platform pledge to not cut Social Security and Medicare, and not change the retirement age as if it's a negative thing, because this is what libertarians believe. They don't like entitlements either. This is why I said what I said about libertarians in this magazine. They're not reporting on this as allies of the Republicans or allies of the Democrats. In a weird way, the libertarians kind of hate them both. But they will also use them both to their advantage whenever they feel like they politically can. And in the state races, a lot of libertarian candidates campaigned with or for Republicans this time around, and they usually do this, but they have been known in some state races to hang out with the Democrats if the Democrats are right-leaning enough. So I just want to be clear that the people who are providing this information are not unbiased themselves. They have a clear right-wing bias, right? So that I just wanted to point that out. So they're saying that one tactic Musk has adopted is buyout style offers to federal workers. That, as it happens, is one area where there are direct lessons from the Al Gore experience. Last week, the U.S. Office of Personnel Management sent a mass email to federal employees with a deferred resignation offer. Anyone who accepted the offer could, it said, resign immediately but enjoy full pay and benefits through the end of September. The email listed February 6th as the deadline. A judge delayed it till the 10th. Now the judge has come out and said it's not illegal. It can go forward. And the judge even said that the unions didn't have a legal standing to bring the case against the executive order. That makes no sense because the unions represent the employees. So we're looking at probably additional legal action. We're not sure, but that's where it stands right now. There has been a fair amount of confusion around the proposal, as when OPM sent the message to air traffic controllers, but then clarified that they weren't actually eligible for the deal. The NPR, Clinton and Gore's project, similarly offered federal workers the lesser of $25,000 or the amount of the employee's severance pay to resign. Yes, the Clinton-Gore administration also sent buyout letters to federal workers. There was an effort to reduce the number of middle-level managers. In general, however, the downsizing occurred as a result of individual employees' responses to the buyout the government offered, Kettle said in 2000. There is little knowledge about the resulting skill mix of the federal workforce. They didn't even bother to look at who resigned and what jobs they represented, what job they resigned from. They didn't care. They're just like, get the hell out. There was little advanced planning of what skill mix the federal government needs for the future. Put more bluntly, there was little assurance that they got rid of the dead weight and kept the people with the best skills. Setting aside such specific lessons of the Clinton era effort, the NPR at least offers us an informal benchmark. If Elon Musk cannot bring big government under control, can he at least reduce it as much as Al Gore? Of course, I'm going to give you the link to this article. It would be irresponsible of me if I didn't. So, Reason Magazine, there you go. Reason Magazine lays out that between 1993 and 2000, the Clinton-Gore administration offered federal employees buyout letters. Didn't offer them as much, I guess. I'm not sure if you can compare it one-to-one to what Trump is offering federal employees now. But what we do know is that, like what is happening now, federal employees then, they just took the offer to the tune of $426,200 over 7 years. Now, so far, 65,000 federal employees have voluntarily taken Trump's buyout offer. So that's where the question of whether Musk and Trump and Musk, Trump and Doge and Musk, I don't know what kind of, whether they can meet the same benchmark of over 400 workers eliminated from the government that Clinton and Gore did. Right? So that is interesting. But I would also be irresponsible if I did not point out that there are differences. Even though both administrations have done largely the same thing, there are differences with the way they were done, which I will argue right now. The way the Clinton administration did their buyout was able to be carried out without the chaos because they did do the research, they did some hearings, They investigated and they passed a law, right? And Trump has done none of that. So let's look at what the differences were in the way these two administrations carried these things out. Now, this is being reported by Al Jazeera. And this was February 7th. Also, I think same day as the Reason article. Yeah, it was. So this is their fact check. Did Clinton set the precedent for mass federal worker buyouts? Trump fans say his plan for federal worker buyouts is not new. In the early 1990s, Bill Clinton signed an act allowing $25,000 buyouts for federal workers, but was that the same? As unions and Democrats denounced the Trump administration's efforts to slash the federal workforce through worker buyouts, some social media users have said the president's actions parallel those of former President Bill Clinton. This is one of the tweets to all you Democrats freaking out over President Trump's buyout program. And this person is obviously from Europe because of the way they spell the word program. Europeans spell program with two M's and an E. Okay. I present to you a piece of history. L.D. Basler, a retired federal law enforcement officer, wrote on X. His post quoted a 1995 statement Clinton made a year after he signed the Federal Workforce Restructuring Act. I guess Clinton didn't have the authority either when he did it in the 90s because the president was set by Democrats. Another ex-user wrote, "Is that true?" Al Jazeera asks. Under Clinton, the government offered mass buyouts, but there is a key difference with what's happening under President Donald Trump. Under Clinton, a bipartisan Congress overwhelmingly approved Clinton's program following months of review. That is the difference. By contrast, Trump's deferred resignation offer, controversially known as a buyout. Why is it controversially known as a buyout when Clinton did the same thing and you called it a buyout and that wasn't controversial? Emerged within a week of his inauguration with law. That's true. Trump hasn't done any hearings. There was no studies done. There were no. The Clinton administration, now this is according to David Osborne, an advisor for the Clinton era review that preceded the buyout. See, they called what Clinton did a buyout right here. I didn't say it was controversial. So David Osborne said, quote, "We spent 6 months, involved several hundred federal workers, and made hundreds of recommendations to Clinton and Gore, some of which they accepted, some they didn't." Because Trump didn't do any of that, the status and legality of Trump's program remains unclear. The administration set a midnight February 6th deadline for workers to accept the offer, but a federal judge in Massachusetts blocked that deadline and set a hearing to February 20. And remember, like I said, by now, this article was written before the judge issued their final ruling that says that the Trump's buyouts are not illegal. They can go forward, and the federal workers unions didn't have legal standing to bring the lawsuit. I don't think that's legally true, but I'm not a lawyer and I'm also not a member of the union. So I'm expecting the union to sue again over that and to take it to an appeals court. Federal union sued and wrote that the administration had offered no statutory basis for its unprecedented offer. The lawsuit questions whether the federal government will honor the commitment to pay participants through September 30, because remember, we talked about how the federal budget will expire in the middle of March. and they know this, and they don't have funds to guarantee that they're going to pay for anything yet. So they can't guarantee that they are going to have the money to honor these buyouts. Okay, so the U.S. Office of Personnel Management said at the time this was 40,000 employees. As of a couple of days ago, I think it was up to 65,000, but that's still nowhere near the 425,000, 426,200 employees that Clinton and Gore excised from the, okay. Buyouts under Clinton stemmed from a review and act by Congress. Did they stem from the review? No, they didn't stem from the review. Again, this is why you got to be very careful, even with media outlets that you don't think are influenced by US imperialism. Al Jazeera can be problematic sometimes too. A few weeks into his presidency in February 1993, Clinton issued an executive order telling each government department or agency with more than 100 employees to cut at least 4% of its civilian positions over 3 years through attrition or early out programs. Oh, this is the way they spell program. Okay, I see. All right, I was getting a little excited. Okay, so here's the thing, and I could be confused, but the buyouts couldn't have stemmed from a review and an act by Congress if just a few weeks into Clinton's presidency, he issued an executive order telling the departments, the federal agencies, to cut their positions. So the buyouts stemmed from Clinton telling federal agencies to cut your workforces. And that stemmed from Clinton campaigning on reducing the size of government. And that stemmed from the DLC strategy aligning the Democratic policy, the Democratic platform policies with right-wing voters' wishes. That's where these stemmed from, not from a review and an act by Congress. They came later, as the article points out. Congress paved the way for the buyouts after the executive order. In March 1994, Clinton signed H.R. 3345, the Federal Workforce Restructuring Act of 1994. The legislation passed by wide bipartisan margins, 391 to 17 in the House and 99 to 1 in the Senate. Democrats have been all in on screwing workers since now. The legislation authorized buyouts of up to $24,000 for selected groups of employees in the executive and judicial branches, except employees of the Department of Defense, Central Intelligence Agency, or the General Accounting Office, now called the Government Accountability Office. The law set an April 1, 1995 deadline. Clinton said the plan would enable the reduction of employment by 273,000 people by the end of 1999. After all that rhetoric about cutting the size and cost of government, our administration has done the hard work and made the tough choices, Clinton said in a statement. I believe when he said this, when he said after all the rhetoric about cutting the size and cost of government, he was talking about Reagan and the Republicans. When Clinton made this statement, he was shitting on the Republicans who talked for 8 years prior to his presidency about the need to cut government, big government and their welfare spending, big government and the entitlements, big government and what was the other thing? Big government, all the lazy federal workers, big government and all of the waste and abuse. That was the Republicans during the Reagan era. So here Clinton is saying to them, after all of the rhetoric about cutting the size and cost of government, our administration has done the hard work and made the tough choices. We are the ones who screwed over all those workers. After you were Republicans, all you did was talk. He said, I believe the economy will be stronger and the lives of middle-class people will be better as we drive down the deficit with legislation like this. And I think around this time is also when the Democrats started hyper-focusing on the middle class. And I think this is around this time is when we stopped hearing politicians say the words poor or poverty. And by politicians, I mean Democrats. Republicans, ever since I could remember, Republicans have been trash. So they've always been racist. They've always been take the money from the working people, take the money from the poors. They're lazy anyway. We need to raise the retirement age so as many of them can die as possible so we can have all their social security money. The Republicans have always been the obvious evil. It's when the Democrats would not stand up for the people in opposition to the Republicans that began to cause a problem for the people, because people started to be like, well, wait a minute, we're voting for you because you are supposed to be better than them. You're supposed to be fighting for us for them. And now you're sounding just like them. Yeah, the middle class is great, but what about the working class and the poor? The Democrats should have been the ones on the side of the working class and the poor. They should have been the ones standing up for the working class and the poor. They had been before, or at least they said they had been before, because that was the whole point behind the New Deal they claimed, right? And then we saw how the New Deal screwed Black folks. So this is around the time that the Democratic Party basically intentionally moved itself further to the right. So the idea that Democrats are left wing, that they're that they're Marxist, oh, that they're radical in any way, that's an insult to those of us who are actually those things. I'm an actual communist. Don't you dare call those fucking liberal, lying, traitorous bastards Marxists and communists and leftists. They ain't my people. The hell? So, after all that rhetoric, Clinton says, from the Republicans who just talked and they ain't do shit, we did it. The legislation was an outgrowth of Clinton's National Performance Review, which launched in March 1993 with the slogan, "Make government work better and cost less." Clinton appointed Vice President Al Gore to lead the review and issue a report within 6 months. About 250 career civil servants worked on the review and created recommendations with agency employees. Not everyone agreed with the Clinton-Gore initiative. There was opposition, but union leaders supported reducing the power of middle managers, the target of most of the reductions, and the increased role of unions in bargaining. So they felt this was an acceptable trade-off. And this is the statement of John M. Kaminsky, National Performance Review Deputy Director. Gore visited federal offices for what are billed as town meetings, but they were more like group therapy sessions that allowed workers to air their feelings about their jobs, the Chicago Tribune wrote in June 1993. Gore's September 93 report made hundreds of recommendations, including buyouts. Gore went on David Letterman's late night television show to promote the plan. Letterman asked Al Gore, "So have you fixed the government?" And Gore said, "We found a lot of really ridiculous things that cost way too much money." Gore brought up government purchased ashtrays and read the federal regulations about how the ashtrays must break when dropped. Wearing safety goggles, Gore cracked the ashtray with a hammer. There's that performative stuff that the Democrats love to do. Clinton had a very deep commitment to change, but it was not hostile. Paul Light, New York University professor emeritus of public service, said, Clinton's effort to reduce the federal workforce stemmed from his campaign platform as a new Democrat who said the era of big government was over, said Elaine Kamarck, I guess that's how you pronounce her name, who helped lead the Clinton-Gore review and is now director of the Brookings Institution's Center for Effective Public Management. Gee, you see how these people who get involved in these political administrations, these presidential administrations, go on to these positions that are very influential, that have to do with how we think about things that happened in history and what we understand about them. We had a tech revolution going on that did not require as many layers of management as the old days, Camark said. Now they talk about how the Trump administration wants to cut jobs. The Clinton approach sought to be surgical in determining which employees could be eased out without compromising the government's overall mission. The Trump approach so far involves buyouts and firings. Call the Clinton approach surgical if you want. It also included buyouts. Maybe not firings, but it included buyouts. And they're trying to make it seem like it didn't. And that is just dishonest. Okay. Trump's approach so far involves buyouts and firings without a review period or congressional action. That's true. None of this has been vetted by Congress. There have been no hearings, none of that, no law, nothing. On January 28th, the Office of Personnel Management emailed federal employees about the fork in the road. Oh, we know about that. Okay. About 2 million employees received the offer. The civilian federal workforce is about 2.4 million, setting aside U.S. Postal Service workers, which I told you they're going to go after soon. According to Pew Research Center, the average annual pay is about $106,000. Now, yes, it's true. There are some people in the federal government who make a whole lot more money than that, whole lot. But most of when you factor out the crazy salaries of the GS 13s and the 11s and the 12s and the 13s and the supervisors and the above, the average federal employee, it's not that. No, they don't make a lot of money. So the idea that the federal workforce is what's draining the government. No, that's not what it is. No. We know what it is, but yeah. Some workers were exempt from the offers, including the military, postal service employees, and workers in immigration enforcement, national security, public safety. Trump's program is more generous than Clinton's. Rachel Gressler, a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, said, Clinton's $25,000 offer is about $55,000. In today's dollars, Trump's plan says it will pay people over about 8 months. So factoring in the average federal worker salary, that's higher. Democratic attorneys general said the payments may not be guaranteed and urged unionized workers to follow the guidance of their union officials. Democratic senators raised similar concerns about the short window for employees to decide and Trump's authority to do this. Blah, 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 blah. So a reporter asked White House press secretary Carolyn Levitt, who is a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. I think I have enjoyed the stupidity that she has displayed in her press conferences more than I enjoyed Jeanine Pierre just being a clown, just being, just the neck rolling a clown as she could be, lying for the fucking fascist Biden. But anyway, okay. So Carolyn Levitt said, in answer to the question whether the program was a way to purge the government of people who disagree with the president, she said that's absolutely false. This is a suggestion to federal workers that they have to return to work. If you want federal workers to return to work, just tell them to go back. But you don't have to threaten them with a... And if they don't, then they have the option to resign. That's not what it said. That letter said you have get out, fork in the road, out, or we'll fire you. And this administration is very generously offering to pay them for 8 months. Okay, yeah, that part is true. All right, that part is true. Although guarantee, there's no guarantee. The offer, they're offering to pay them for 8 months. They cannot guarantee that they are going to get paid after March. But with Republican-controlled House and Senate, and the link to that article is also in the chat. a Republican controlled House and Senate basically guarantees that they'll pass whatever budget they want, because the Republicans are not going to, they're not going to mount any kind of resistance to the Democrats rather are not going to mount any kind of resistance to this. If people think they are, I don't know what you've been paying attention to. If you think the Democrats are actually going to do anything to try to resist any of this, Representative Al Green filing articles of impeachment against, he's been in. Didn't y'all try that shit twice? And what happened? Why are you trying that again? And and if you're going to issue articles of impeachment against Trump for the offer he made to ethnically cleanse Palestinians from Gaza, how come you didn't issue those articles of impeachment when Biden made the exact same offer in private a few months before? Listen, I am not interested in giving Donald Trump a way out from him being held accountable for all of the awful shit he is doing. I am not at all saying that what Donald Trump is doing, what Elon Musk is doing, and what they're being allowed to do, what they are being enabled to do, because I understand that they have replaced some people, but they have replaced the top managers. They have replaced the heads of agencies and the top managers. They have not replaced all of the other employees in the. So when I say people are allowing them to do this, they're going along with it, they're enabling them. I get that Trump and Musk have replaced the top managers, and it's the top managers that are saying, you take these web pages down, you change this, you take this. I don't understand how all of those people are not just sitting at their desks like, fuck you. No. And of course, the response from the managers is going to be, okay, we're getting security in here. Because then that's when the security agencies, that all of these agencies have security, security outfits in there. So like the FBI have an FBI police force. The Secret Service has the Secret Service police. CIA police. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD police. Do you understand? So at some point, they're going to call security, and then security should not be answering the phone, because security would know, oh, these are the people. Oh, that's the nigga that Musk and Trump put in. He ain't my boss. I don't take orders from them. They're gonna have to fight. Can you imagine how much less chaos there would have been if a good section of just regular workers collectively said, we're not following these orders? But you know what would have had to have happened as a precursor to that being done? Workers had to be organized. They had to be organized to know that that's an option. And like I said before, actual radicals, actual revolutionaries have been so repressed by this government that the idea of workers organizing, not just for protections in the workforce, but to exercise their political power as workers. The reason workers today do not realize they have the power to collectively stand together and oppose unlawful and immoral orders is because there are no radical voices in these labor unions telling them, okay, now we have to exercise our power as a union. We collectively tell this man and his appointees, we're not doing any of this. And as a matter of fact, you can't get in the building. Because now the labor union, I forget what is the federal AFCE, I forget the acronyms for what it stands for, but the union for the federal civilian workforce would get together with the worthless union for the police forces, because not the FOP, but for the agency police forces. Or, some of the employees just go and talk to, hey, I know you see what they're doing. These people are fascists. And they're trying to hire us. They're trying to fire us. They're trying to get rid of us. And I know I need my job. I know you need your kids in college. A little 8 months, what's that going to do? Your kids got to be in college for another 3 years. That 8 months ain't going to do nothing. Our union is planning to do this. And don't have the conversation at the building. Like, take him out for a beer or something. You know what I mean? Don't let anybody. And see, you have to be in an organization with people who have real radical revolutionary politics to be able to tell you and help you understand that you have the power to do that. And folks who are in the chat, saying that takes courage. You get that through organization, y'all. Good grief. You get courage through organization, because it is in organization that you find out you're not alone. You're not crazy, because you know that something is wrong. And look, there are all these other people who also know that something is wrong. I am not crazy. I am not by myself. And then you see the way other people are making moves that you didn't think you could make. They are making sacrifices. Now, everybody cannot make the same sacrifices. Do you understand? I can't go to jail. I cannot be arrested. You know why? Because they're not going to give me my transplant medication. They will intentionally withhold it from me. They will kill me. Do you understand? So we need to be clear about what we are able to do in organization and what we are not able to do. And that is a very real, tangible, material consideration that we have to have. We are not telling people, listen, as the coordinator or co-coordinator for BAP DC, Mid-Atlantic, the chair for the coordinating committee, I'm not having people come into this organization telling them you need to be prepared to be on the front line and get locked up. I don't know that you have kids at home who you don't have anybody who can take care of if you do get locked up. I don't know if you have a medical condition that requires that you need to take your medication certain time every day, like I do, or else you will get sick. And we can be outside all we want to, demanding that they don't have to. We see the way they treat our political prisoners, right? We understand that we need to collect money for bail. And we can't always do that because people don't like organization. We keep telling people join an organization. People don't want to join an organization. Then a bunch of people get swept up in a fucking FBI raid. And then people are ringing their, oh, what do we do? Well, you know what? If you had joined the organization and contributed to some damn funds, we might have been able to get some people out of jail. Speaking of organizing, that's one of my comrades right there, Rafiki Morris. Wondering why I haven't talked to him today. Do you understand? This is why we tell people to join organization. It's not because organization is like this, magic bullet that cures all the things. It is because organization is where and how you learn to fight. That is why we tell it's not going to fix everything in your life. I'm a member of BAP. And I'm a part of leadership in BAP, and I still don't have a job. I still am like sitting here like, do I want to get a job, or do I want to try to work out to see if I can do this independent thing and take care of some? I still have bills that I need to pay. And I still need to be involved in these actions where we are out doing mobilizations. And I still have to be very careful as much as I want to. I have wanted to like throw myself in between the pigs and some of our people. But I have had to remember. And a couple of times, a couple of comrades had to pull me back, be like, man, we can't bring you your pills in jail. You know that they're not gonna let you have your pills in DC jail, ma'am. Go sit your ass down. But it is through organization that all the things y'all are talking about, people would need if they were to do that. That's where you get those things. That is where you learn those things. That's where you learn there is more than one way to fight this battle. There is room, there is a place in organization for everybody. Not everybody needs to be out front. Not everybody needs to be arrested. Not everybody needs to be on the panels. We need people to take notes for the meetings so we can remember what we said, because we're not going to record our meetings because the state controls all the technology, and we'd be fucking idiots if we recorded all of our meetings on Zoom. Do you understand? We need people to provide childcare for our events because we know the people we want to talk to the most are workers. So we create situations for our events where working people can come. So we provide childcare because we understand one of the things that makes it hard for working people to organize is they don't know what to do with their kids. They have to work, they have to come home, feed their kids, help the kids do homework. So you know what we do also? We provide food. That is why we provide food for a lot of our events, because we want people who are coming from work not to have to worry about, oh, I got to eat. We know that's why we provided some food for you. Oh, and here, this person is here doing childcare. They've got some games and some crafts and some crayons and some face painting for the kids. You could bring your kids right over here. You come on in, sit down. Your kids are over there playing. And you are over here getting your dinner and learning, getting political education, getting a foothold in a community, getting the first tastes of what organization looks and feels like. And hopefully, if our message is right, if we are engaging with people well, if they're happy with the safety of their children, and if they appreciate the effort that we made to make sure that they have a safe place to come, that their physical needs are met, that they got dinner, that they didn't have to cook, that their kid is full and they're asleep, and they can take them home asleep and put them down. If we've done that right, those people will come back. Those people will come and say, how do I join this organization? And what do you want me to do? I don't know what skills I have, but I like this, that, and the third. That is why we tell people to organize. Yeah, all of this takes courage. Yes, absolutely. You don't think it takes courage for me to still get on here and do this after all of the years of people saying and doing the awful things to and about me that yeah, it does. It does. I got more people who have my back than the people who give me shit. So yeah, I got a whole formation. I got an 800-person formation behind me. You don't think I can conquer the goddamn world? Yes, I do. And that comes from them. That comes from knowing that I am not alone. That comes from knowing, and I have seen it happen. I've seen us do it. When one of us is in trouble, all of us ride. Do you understand me? You don't get that outside of a family. And that's only if your family is, full of pretty decent people. A lot of us have a bunch of weirdos in our family, but you only get that kind of thing from a family or a community. And an organization should be a community. You don't go to an organization to find community. Let me be clear about that. No, you don't go to an organization, you find community, because a community isn't necessarily an organization, right? But if you are serious about incorporating the community, a community, this community, that community into your organization, then your organizing has to look like community building. Your organizing should incorporate some aspect of community. It doesn't have to be all of what you do, but it should be a part of what you do, so that people feel comfortable coming into your organization and offering their life, their skills, their hands, their feet, their intellect, their passion to your organization. Nobody's going to do that if they think they're around a bunch of people who are full of shit and who don't give a damn about them. So that's what I had for tonight. When my comrade sent me this article from Reason, I was just like, see, and I actually didn't know all of this. I just knew that there have been several reductions in force or rifts over the past, I don't know, 30, 40 years. I mean, my mom, who passed away in 1996, she worked for the Department of Labor for over 30 years. She went through two rifts, two shutdowns and one rift. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I just found out from reading this article that the whole buyout thing had been done before. So listen, I understand that the way Trump is doing these things is different from the way Clinton and Gore did it. And yes, that does impact maybe not the outcome, but it impacts the way we are responding to it. But I do think that the fact that Trump is not doing something new with this offering government workers buyouts, it's not new, y'all. I don't care how you characterize the way he did it. It is not new. And it doesn't become new and unprecedented just because we don't want to admit that Democrats actually did it before. Trump doing it a different way does not make it necessarily something we have never seen before. Yeah, we've seen government employee buyouts before. Yes. All right, we have not seen them done the way Trump has done them, but let's stop acting as if the thing he is doing by cutting the federal workforce through offering them early retirement buyouts is new. It's not new. It not only is it not new, but the Democrats were able to cut nearly 500,000 positions. It took them 7 years to do it. And Trump is not going to be able, Trump and Musk are not going to be able to reach anywhere near that number with this singular buyout. And they're not going to fire 400,000 people. They're not going to fire 375,000 people. I say that. I say that knowing that this is Donald Trump and anything could happen. And I am perfectly willing to come on the next show and admit, yeah, I was wrong about that. I don't have a problem admitting that I am wrong when I'm actually wrong. And I don't ever claim to be right, even most of the time. I just really get frustrated when people treat me like I don't know what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, you can disagree, but stop acting as if I'm an idiot. Stop acting as if I don't know what I'm saying. This is true. You may not agree with my characterization of it in relation to this moment, and that's cool. We can talk about that. But don't act as if these things have not happened before, because what Trump is doing is not unprecedented. Was it done in a less chaotic way? Yes. Yeah, it was done in a much less chaotic, much more organized, much more yeah. Uh-huh. And over a much longer period of time. But wasn't the reason for it being done and ultimately the end result the same? People took the buyout. They did it because they wanted to reduce the size of government that was too big. The Republican lie of big government. So the Democrats come in and fix big government better than the Republicans did. Which is what, remember, Democrats were saying about border policy, that even with the ICE raids, that the ICE agents were scooping up indigenous people. And then the Democrats were coming out and saying, look at them. They can't even do ICE raids right. I mean, at least when Biden was deporting people, he was deporting more people than this. So now y'all going to come out and brag about how much more effective at deporting people the Democrats were. Okay. These are the people y'all are trusting haven't are better than this guy. Okay, but I'm just going to keep telling you, when Democrats have done things that Republicans have been able to use to make an already bad situation that the Democrats created even worse. I am just going to keep telling you these things because it is history. It's not a personal opinion. It's not, I'm not trying to make any particular point other than this is not a Trump issue. This is a duopoly issue. This is an issue of the entire system propped up by both parties that work together to keep this system propped up, to deny you and me and all working class and poor people our right to human rights, life, and dignity. That is the point. So let me see what y'all have had to say in the comments here as we wrap up. I mean, look, Tara Sutton, hey, glad to see you, said the problem is we don't know what organization to join. You can join the Black Alliance for Peace. If you're an African, you can join directly as an African. If you are not African and you are in solidarity with the work that we do, you can be a member of the Solidarity Network. And one day I'll talk about why we organize like that. But if you understand the history of Black radical organization, you would understand why we organize like that, because every white leftist radical who is a real leftist radical understands why we organize like that. But any organization that is anti-capitalist, and this is what I tell people all the time, make sure the organization is explicitly and states publicly that they are anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, not just anti-war. Anti-imperialist. We'll talk about the difference between those two one day too. Pan-African. I would like for them to be socialist, but okay, if they're anti-capitalist, I think that's a good start. Because once you get to anti-capitalism, you're not that far from socialism. Because then the question becomes, Well, if we're not capitalists, what are we for? There's not much left, right? So this is what I tell people when you're looking for an organization: anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, not just anti-war, pan-Africanist, absolutely, if you're African. If you're not African, it has to absolutely focus on international solidarity. And this organization must be inclusive, which means it cannot have any hangups about Black folks, queer folks, trans folks. I don't care how you personally feel about any of those issues. Immigrants, all people deserve human dignity, to have their human rights respected, and they deserve not to be discriminated against based upon any aspect of their being. If you are in an organization that tolerates separating groups of people from you because they are different in some way, that is not a revolutionary organization. That kind of ideology, that kind of thinking, moving that way is extremely colonial and imperialist. Because in our indigenous societies, we didn't do that shit. All these ideas about the roles of women and non-gender conforming people, cross-dressing people, people with multiple partners, people who never have a partner and don't ever want one. We have had the full spectrum of humanity and sexual expression and experience and existence and gender expression since human existence, since we've been here. The only time it became a problem was when the damn colonizers came and decided that we needed to be colonized so they could steal our resources. And then they began to tell us that our culture was wrong and backward. And so they began to impose upon us their cultural values. And their cultural and social values always included this evil patriarchal social hierarchy where men made all the decisions and ruled everything. Women got married, had babies, kept the house, made sure dinner was on the table for the men, and the children were the property of the men. The women couldn't even decide what their own children would pursue, and the children definitely didn't have any say or any autonomy. And in that same European, pan-European colonial hierarchy that is tied to capitalism, then they also have the exclusion from the rest of society, or the othering of people who do not conform to their norms. So women who don't want children are others. They're weird cat ladies. People who are queer, who are attracted to the same sex romantically, they're othered. People who believe they were born in a body that expresses the wrong gender, they're othered. And they're not just othered, they are made out to be a threat to you and the way you conform to colonial societal norms. So if you are in some organization and they got a beef with trans people, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. That is not an organization that's going to get anybody free. Because what's going to happen is those people are going to join in with further marginalizing and then actually causing harm to trans people. I always ask the question, and I'm going to wrap up here because I'm hungry. I always ask the question of organizations that have messy politics. I always ask this question. And I ask this question to determine if I want to deal with them. I always ask if they were ever to gain power, considering their positions on some things, if they were ever to gain power, what would they do with that power in relation to that particular position, right? Like the libertarians, they had a big anti-war rally. Well, it was big. They had an anti-war rally a few years ago. A lot of people, a lot of the leftists were like, "Oh, we need to get involved with this because," and it was about Ukraine. Oh, because we're this war is pushing us closer to World War III, and we have to stop nuclear war. And even if they are right wing, we need to organize with them because they want to stop war. Now, this was the white leftists who were saying this about the libertarians and their anti-war rally. And I'm reading their platform, and I'm looking at the people who were being invited to speak, and looking at the people who were advertising and promoting it. And I'm kind of looking at it, I'm like, I don't know, man, these libertarians, their politics are so I look at the thing, the platform, and I go down the rabbit hole, and I see that they do indeed hate trans people. That they're not too fond of gay people. They're not too fond of black folks either. They don't like Black History Month. They don't, they're not crazy about Martin Luther King. Civil rights, fuck civil rights. They want property rights. They're fine with civil rights as long as the federal government doesn't make them adhere to non-discrimination laws. That's the thing with the Libertarian Party. So, I'm looking at their platform, and I look because I'm just like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the libertarians have changed. They haven't changed. They got worse. They got worse. So I'm reading their tweets about, the top leadership in the Libertarian Party. They're tweeting things like, we could save a lot of tax money if more trans people died. I'm not kidding. Racist shit about Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday. And I asked the question of that rally, despite the people I knew who I worked with, not Sean. I don't want anybody to confuse that I'm talking about Sean. I'm not talking about Sean. But there were people that I worked with who got on board with that, and they would not talk to me about it because they knew how I felt about it. Because we had to go, I'm like, listen. And I said to them in the studio that day, we had this conversation, and everybody was in the studio, and I was like, look, if these people ever win power, what do you think they are going to do with that power to the groups of people that they've already said they hate? If the libertarians gain power, you don't think they're going to use that political power to actually cause harm to trans people? Because they said they would. And people didn't have an answer for that because they knew that they would. But for me, that was the deciding line. That was why I could not participate in, endorse, promote, not have anything to do with the Rage Against the War Machine rally, because I understood how dangerous these people were. Because they flat out said they hate these people. And if they ever get power, they're gonna get rid of them because it would be better for everybody else. What if you are in an organization that has antagonistic attitudes or policies toward any group of people that's not capitalists, fascists, and the state? That's not a people's organization. That's not a revolutionary organization. So that's my advice to you. For what kind of organization to join. I can't tell you what organization. I would love for everybody to join BAP. But also then that would mean way more work for us. So, but that's what I tell people when they ask that question. And people do ask that question a lot because I talk about organizing a lot. And people always say, I don't know what organization to join. This is what I always tell them. That's never going to change. That's never, ever going to change. So All right, that's it. It is time for my beer and my relaxation. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in the dark room here as we talked about yet another reason to hate Bill Clinton and Al Gore. Just craziness. Check out my Patreon if you are able to. Please consider becoming a patron of Luqman Nation because, Patreon is kind of how I'm hoping to not have to get a job again and continue to focus my life on this work that is the most important to me, organizing. Um, so please consider becoming a paid patron for Luqman Nation because I do History Rewind every week. I've got a couple of extra content explaining the Freedmen's Bureau, the Compromise of 1850, the Fugitive Slave Act, and something from last week that I forgot. Oh, the Ebenezer Creek Massacre and why that's important in the emergence or the establishment of General Sherman's Field Order Number 15, otherwise known as 40 Acres and a Mule. So yeah, all of that is on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Luqman Nation, LuqMannation. And I try to do those every week. So it is not a Black History Month thing. It's an every week thing, and I'm just going to do it until I get tired of doing it. And I would really appreciate your support, as well as other things. I have a Substack for my writing, Substack at Luqman Nation. There's one thing up there. There's about to be two. And of course, here on Black Liberation Media, check us out on Fridays at 5 o'clock. I will send a special Patreon video for the channel tomorrow, I believe. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching this week. I appreciate y'all very, very much. As always, a luta continua. The struggle sure enough continues. But I promise y'all, if we keep fighting, if we get organized and fight, I promise you, Victoria Acerta. Victory is certain, and history proves it. All right? See you next time. Peace.